Every other animal on this planet woke up today, stretched, and got on with its life completely naked. Wolves, elephants, chimpanzees, who share about 98% of your DNA and have never once thought about a jacket. And then there's us, 8 billion people who cannot legally leave the house until we've wrapped ourselves in dead plants and dead animals. We have laws about this. The state will physically intervene if you are too naked in public. That is where we are as a species. So when did this start? And why only us? Here's the strange part. We actually know roughly when humans started wearing clothes, and we know it because of lice. Not cave paintings, not preserved clothing, because fabric rots. Lice. A parasite accidentally kept the receipts on the invention of fashion, and I'll show you exactly how in about 90 seconds. But first, you need to understand the problem we were trying to solve. Humans are almost the only large mammal on Earth that's effectively hairless. Gorillas, covered. Bears, lions, horses, hippos. Wildly different climates, all of them in full coats. And then us. Smooth, patchy, weirdly pink in places, sporting a look that says, I used to have fur, but I made some choices. The leading explanation is heat. As our ancestors moved out of the forest onto open grassland, we started doing something almost no other predator does. Running prey down over long distances in the middle of the day. Fur is a liability for that. You overheat, your core temperature spikes, and you collapse before you catch anything. So we shed the coat and replaced it with something better. Somewhere between 2 and 4 million sweat glands. More than almost any animal alive. We are elite, world-class cooling machines. Fantastic on the savanna. Catastrophic the second it gets cold. Which gives us the obvious story. Humans walk into cold places. Humans get cold. Humans wrap up in animal skin. Clean. Logical. A 5-year-old could work it out. And it's wrong. Here's how we know. You carry 2 kinds of lice. Head lice, which live in your hair, and body lice, which live in your clothing. In the seams, in the folds, in the fabric. Not on skin. They cannot survive on bare skin. They need cloth. And body lice evolved out of head lice at one specific moment in the past. That moment is when a brand new habitat suddenly appeared for them to move into, which means it's the moment humans started wearing something, consistently, every single day. Geneticists at the University of Florida sequenced both populations and ran the clock backwards. The split happened somewhere between roughly 83,000 and 170,000 years ago. Sit with that for a second. The thing that causes mass panic in elementary schools, that ruins camping trips, that we have spent our entire history trying to destroy, is the reason we know when we got dressed. They were there. They adapted. They moved in. It's beautiful and horrifying at the same time. Now, here's why that date breaks the cold weather story completely. Modern humans didn't leave Africa in serious numbers until around 70,000 years ago. Clothing shows up tens of thousands of years before we ever went anywhere cold. So we weren't dressing for the weather. We were dressing for each other. Part of it is simple protection. Sun, thorns, insects, sharp rock. Everything trying to bite and scrape and burn you while you walk through tall grass all day. Boring answer. Probably a true one. But the more interesting evidence is ochre. Red pigment. We find it used on human bodies as far back as 200,000 years ago. That's before the lice. Before clothing. Which means the urge to decorate yourself, to put something on your body that tells other people who you are, is older than clothing itself. We were painting ourselves before we were dressing ourselves. And once you're doing that, the jump is short. You don't just wear a hide, you wear that hide. The one from the animal that nearly killed you. And now it isn't warmth anymore. It's a sentence. It says something about you. Congratulations. That's the entire fashion industry, invented by about 30 people arguing around a fire over who gets the leopard. Then the climate turned on us. Between roughly 120,000 and 70,000 years ago, the Earth went through brutal glacial swings. Temperatures dropped. Ice sheets spread. Huge stretches of Africa dried out. Lakes disappeared. Food collapsed. By some estimates, the entire human population fell to somewhere between 10 and 30,000 people. Not 30,000 in a region. 30,000 on the planet. We came genuinely close to simply not existing. For everyone who survived that, and then pushed north into Europe and east into Siberia, clothing stopped being decoration. It became the line between alive and dead. Which is why the most important object of that era isn't a painting or a pot. It's a needle. In Denisova Cave in Siberia, archaeologists found a bird bone, shaped and polished, with a tiny eye bored through the narrow end without cracking it. Roughly 50,000 years old. That is not survival instinct. Somebody looked at a splinter of bone, imagined a tool that did not exist yet, and then built it, so they could stitch two pieces of hide into a shape that fit a human body and sealed at the wrists and the neck, where your blood runs close to the surface and heat pours out fastest. Draped skin keeps you warm. Tailored clothing keeps you alive at 40 below. That needle is a big part of why we reached every continent on Earth. And we weren't the only ones who figured it out. Neanderthals were processing hides with purpose-built tools long before they ever met us. Which raises a question nobody can answer. Is clothing a human invention, or is it just what happens to any smart, social, cold animal that walks on two legs? Would it happen every single time? Here's the part I think is genuinely the strangest, though. If clothes were only practical, every culture on Earth would have found the most efficient design for its climate, and then stopped. Thick in the Arctic, thin in the tropics, finished forever. That is not remotely what happened. Instead, we turned clothing into language. Priests dressed differently from soldiers. Rulers wore things it was illegal for anyone else to touch. We bury our dead in specific clothes, and some of the oldest fiber we've ever found, 30,000 years old, out of a cave in the country of Georgia, was already dyed in multiple colors. Somebody looked at a perfectly functional piece of string and thought, this needs to be a different color. Not warmer. Different. Because it needed to say something. No other animal does that. Peacocks display, cuttlefish change color, but they aren't choosing a message based on who's in the room, what happened last week, and who they want to be seen as. You did it this morning. You made a series of decisions, half of them unconscious, about what to put on your body. And every one of them said something about your mood, your status, your tribe, the version of yourself you're presenting today. 170,000 years, and the thing connecting you directly to a person standing on the African savanna covered in red ochre is that you both got dressed. That's not a small thing. That's the whole thing. So knowing all that, what did you put on today, and what do you think it's actually saying? Tell me in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.